Cyberpunk has been out for a week now, so I thought it'd be a good time to go over the entirety of the main story quite quickly, and just so you can kind of get what's going on in the whole picture here. Some things to note. I will give a spoilers before, but before we get into it, I just wanted to say that it does not matter if you are a boy or a girl, masculine or feminine. It does not matter if you are a street kid, a nomad, or a corpo. It all plays out the same way. The only things that change if you are one of those classes is the intro story mission, which is unique to each one of those, and some unique dialogue options throughout the story. And I'm pretty sure you have some unique dialogues on the ending. However, it does not change the outcome of the ending either way. I will not be covering all of the endings in this video. I'm just going to bring you up to about the last point in the story and then not talk about the actual one of 6 endings you can get because they are all different. I can explain all of those in a different video. I'm going to now give my one last spoiler warning of this is the entire story of Cyberpunk. The entire story of Cyberpunk. So this is your last spoiler warning. If you do not want to know how the story goes, I would turn the video off now and come back at a later date. But let's get into it. So, starting out, you have your intro story. Yeah, it's different for everyone. I used a corpo, but I've seen all the other ones. You get into the game. You lose all of your money, yada yada yada, and you get a fresh start essentially. So then you now have finally settled into Night City with your team. Jackie is on your side. So you go talk to Doc, you get some upgrades, yada yada yada, it doesn't really matter. And Jackie gives you a proposal that you should go talk to Dexter Deshawn. Dexter Deshawn then gives you a series of jobs, but the most important one that he gives you is getting the Flathead. Now, he gives you some ways to get the Flathead. You can talk to Militech, you can talk to Evelyn Parker, and you can talk to a bunch of people. Go away about getting the Flathead. The most important thing is that you just get the Flathead. It doesn't really matter how. So you get the Flathead and you get some insight on Evelyn Parker, who we found out had an exterior motive on why she should be getting the Flathead, because you're using the Flathead to go steal a relic from Yorinobu-san, or the son of the Emperor of Arasaka. So after a few days, that mission finally starts. It's called the Heist. This is the pinnacle and highlight of all of Act 1, and this is about like everything you've been doing at this point in the story. It leads up to the Heist. And the Heist is you going into Arasaka Tower and stealing the relic from Yorinobu. So the relic is what we have found out at a later date is actually Johnny Silverhand's engram encoded into a microchip, essentially. More or less, I mean, that's basically what we're doing. And the reason why this chip is so important, it's proof of concept that you could put a person on an engram, because Yorinobu's dad, the Emperor, is trying to make a way, actually all of Arasaka is trying to make a way for people to live immortal. That's essentially what they're doing. So the fact that Johnny Silverhand is on this chip is proof of concept that we were able to do this. Johnny Silverhand at this time has been dead for over 50 years. Well, in theory, he's been dead for over 50 years. So we break into the tower. You're in the tower and you steal the chip, and then you see Yorinobu talking to the Emperor, and then he chokes him out like Randy Savage, and then turns the entire Arasaka family line on each other, because now he's in charge of the Arasaka Emperor. He takes the place of his dad. Now, this wasn't really a play for power. This was more of a, I want to do what's good for me and my legacy, and my dad got in my way, so I killed him. It was not a, I want to lead the Emperor, or I want to be the Emperor, so I'm going to kill him. This was, I'm doing what's best for me. So that was some of his motives on why he killed his dad. So he kills his dad, and then we're escaping the tower and we get caught, and Jackie gets shot and he's bleeding out, and our relic gets damaged. So in order to preserve the relic, Jackie puts the chip into his head. We then escape the tower, and in Jackie's dying breath, we rest Jackie's soul. He takes the chip out and gives it to us, and we have to then insert the chip into our skulls and kind of merge with Johnny Silverhand. Okay, so now we're getting to the end of Act 1. We meet up with Dex again because this is why we were doing the job in the first place, and we run into a mishap. We went to our secondary location because the heist didn't go as well, and as we were cleaning up, Dex shoots us in the head, killing us. So we died, and he dumps our body in the middle of a dumpster in the middle of nowhere, and that's where it looks like the story's going to end. And then we wake up in a flashback of Johnny Silverhand, and you start out by doing a concert, and short story short, after the concert, you storm Arasaka Tower and you drop 2 nuclear warheads in Arasaka Tower. The reason behind this is because Arasaka stole Johnny's girlfriend, Alt Cunningham, who was the creator of Soul Killer. More on this later. But that was the motives between why Johnny nuked Arasaka Tower. So we nuke Arasaka Tower, and then we wake up, we get a flashback, and look, it's V. We're waking up in the desert, and we're being dragged out by not only Dex, but Takamura. I did not mention Takamura either, but Takamura was the right hand of the Emperor before Yorinobu killed him. So now Takamura wants to avenge the Emperor's death and do what's right for the Empire of Arasaka. So he found us in the dump to then figure out what information we know. He did not know we were going to be alive at the time. I believe he was just going to take our chips, but more on that at a later time. So we get revived, and like we're in the car, and Takamura actually shoots Dex, puts her body in the car, and we start waking up. A little bit to his surprise. He then asks for his assistance as Arasaka is chasing him now because they realized his betrayal. And that's the intro to Act 2. So after all of that, we get healed up, we get brought to Vic, and we get learned some of this background information that Johnny Silverhand's DNA is merging with ours, and basically we're sharing the same body. Johnny Silverhand and B are sharing the same body. Now, after a dispute like a bickering married couple, the two kind of start to play along, and then that expands into our story of Act 2. While bickering with Johnny and Vic and figuring out what we're going to do about this old married couple, we found out that we are actually a ticking time bomb, and Johnny's engram that's in the side of our head is actually killing V's body. So we are put on a timer as we have to move quickly, and we have to figure out a way to remove this chip. This is basically the accelerant and the main driving factor in all of Act 2 is this chip is killing us, so we have to act quickly. So our first thought is we have to go find Evelyn, who was contracted to steal this chip for a group of voodoo boys out of Pacifica. More on that later. So we're tasked with tracking down Evelyn and asking Rogue about Hellman, and Hellman is actually the designer of this chip. We figured this out as Takamura has given us this information, and we're to pursue these 2 leads. So Rogue, who is previously working with Johnny, knows a little bit. She's the best fixer in town. So we go talk to Rogue, and she gives us some information on Hellman. So Rogue, being what she is, tells us to work with Pan Am, who isn't really a super big driving factor in the main story, but has a very nice side quest that I would recommend doing. However, basically all we use her for is to track down Hellman. Now, Hellman's important because he is the designer of the chip, and he has actually fled from Arasaka in order to get away from the corpo lifestyle and to, just hide under the radar. So ultimately, Pan Am and Rogue help us find Hellman, and Hellman is then taken by Takamura and put away in a nice, safe place to be pulled out at a later date, as he is the creator of the relic and we can't really harm him. Then we go down with Evelyn, and we find out that she got this contract from the Pacifica people, who actually are using the relic or wanted the relic because it was a way to get to Alt Cunningham. more on that in a little bit. But that was the alternative motive behind the Evelyn branch. So then we're supposed to go to the Voodoo Boys in Pacifica and find out this entire job that was to get Alt Cunningham, the creator of Soul Killer, out of the Black Wall, which was ending up, she was captured the same time around when Johnny nuked Arasaka, and she was, you know, put into the dark web, or she fled into the dark web because she thought that was a better alternative than having Arasaka have her control. So essentially she gave her own life to go hide on the internet, or not the internet, the dark web or the web, to get away from Arasaka control. So her soul is basically in the entire network instead of an engram to escape Arasaka's control. So this is why the Voodoo Boys are trying to go or get a hold of her in Pacifica, because they think she can help them with a way to get access to Soul Killer and all of the Arasaka network. So we meet the Voodoo Boys, and after some elaborate plan to kill us, it didn't work. Bridget, the leader of the Voodoo Boys, actually decides to meet with us and helps us meet with Alt. So then we go and meet with Alt, and we have a nice chat, and then you get a flashback into Johnny's life, which actually reveals that Johnny and Alt were romantically engaged, and Alt is the creator of Soul Killer, and she created Soul Killer for Arasaka. And to give a little background on Soul Killer is the way to take everyone's mental psyche, or basically a way to digitalize a person and put them onto the net, or put them onto an engram. It was a way that Arasaka and the Emperor were going to make the Emperor live forever. They were going to digitalize him, put him on a chip, and then put that chip in a new body. So that was the plan. That's why Soul Killer was created, and it's called Soul Killer because, as you know, you die, but if your psyche is put on a chip, does that mean your soul's put on the chip? Not really. That's why it's called Soul Killer. So we find out that's essentially the motive behind why Johnny nuked them in the first place, because we find out the backstory, we found out a lot about Alt, and then we find that Arasaka abducted Alt. That's why Johnny goes after them. So get all that, we have a meeting with Alt, and Alt gives us this master plan of how we can save ourselves and Johnny if we can get into a different part of the network of Arasaka that's behind a wall. So now we have a grand old plan of how we're going to save ourselves. We have the creator of the relic, and we have Alt, who is the creator of Soul Killer, and together they should be able to come together and work out a way to remove Johnny and V's psyches from each other and be able to free Johnny from V's past. So we are left with an option of, basically we have to talk to Hanako, who is the brother of Yorinobu Arasaka and is the head of the Emperor. So Takamura wants to plead his case with the sister because she is always like the heart of the family. So we play that out. Takamura makes this giant plan, elaborate plan to go talk to Hanako, and it works. We get in front of Hanako, and actually he tases Hanako because Yorinobu was going to come after us, and we had to go find a different place. So we get an audience with Hanako, and we tell her everything that we know, that her brother had killed the Emperor and is trying to use the relic to do whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're trying to avenge the Emperor's death. And then Yorinobu actually summons agents to kill us. Takamura dies in the process, and Hanako gets whiffed off to some safe, obscure place that we can't get to at this time. We talk to Johnny, and we essentially make a plan and come to agreement of what would happen if we were to die. This, depending on your ending, changes. So we just kind of have a good heart-to-heart with Johnny. So then we go into Act 3. That's kind of how Act 2 ended, is with our talking of Alt. Now this is the point of no return in the story, and this is where we have to basically decide on how we're going to end the game. So this is where the endings get locked in, and from here on out I'm just going to go through the straight story and not go through the ending really. So Hanako Hanako decided that we were right after all, and she requests another audience with us, even though she's under her brother's control. We meet with Hanako and we decide that here's the plan, here's what we're gonna do, we have to go forward with this, and we'll have our best options going forward with this. So we go forward, we meet Hanako, and she gives us this plan, and then Hanako then gets put into a estate that is off in the middle of nowhere, so Yorinobu can protect her, and so we can't talk to her anymore, essentially is what happened there. And before we go and save her, we have one last heart-to-heart with Johnny and Misty and Vic, and this is our last plea effort. We're gonna die if we don't do anything. So we decide we're gonna go save Hanako. So we go save Hanako, and we break into a state, we rescue her, and when we rescue her, there's Hellman with Hanako. And they've already been in cahoots, they've already worked it out, they already know how we're going to do this. We're going to go storm the board of Arasaka Tower and convince them that Yorinobu had killed the Emperor, and we're essentially starting a coup. So then we make our way to Arasaka Tower, yada yada yada, fly in, crash the board meeting, and right before we get too far into the board meeting and V pleads her case and said she saw the whole thing and the board isn't convinced, Hanako pulls out a relic and puts it on the table, and it's then a hologram relic digitalized version of the Emperor. She had that ace up her sleeve, and it turns out the Emperor actually already digitized himself and made a copy clone of himself, much like Johnny was on the relic. So she uses this as her play, and then the board ends up believing us. So before we can go do anything, Yorinobu sends in his goons, and we basically duke it out. We duke it out, boom, 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 and we win. We end up winning, and we make our way to the top of the tower, and it's Hanako and Yorinobu and us, and basically Hanako gives this giant speech of like, why don't you go get saved now? I'm gonna console my brother and bring him back to the light, essentially. But yeah, so she's gonna work with her brother and like basically rebuild the Arasaka Empire, and then we get to meet with Hellman, and Hellman brings us down to the bottom of the Arasaka Tower, and basically from here out your ending is different based on what you did in previous side stories. So basically that's the entire story. This is where your ending changes, and basically the entire story leads up to us trying to save ourselves and separate ourselves from Johnny Silverhand. Now that is the quick 15-minute rundown with a little of the backstory and a little bit of understanding, just so you can kind of understand how the entire story went. Now, at a later time, I will be going over a deep dive of the entire story, so if you're looking forward to that and a little more or less rushed and a little more fluid, that'll come out soon. But until then, if you have any other Cyberpunk questions or lore that you need answers to, put it down in the comments below, and I will certainly be working on getting that information out as quickly and in a better format than this as possible. This is just kind of the quick rundown. Now, after all that, I would like to say, if you like the video, please like and subscribe, because it helps me out a great deal. And if you like anyone else's content, please like and subscribe to their content, because it helps them out a great deal as well. And I'm sure they would appreciate it as much as I appreciate everyone who watches the video and takes the time for it. But with all that being said, I hope you have a great day.